What's going on, Duelist? It's your boy Nick, bringing you today on the channel an update to my Evil Eye deck profile, featuring the brand new Yubel support from the Phantom Nightmare core set, and this is for the February 2024 format. For those of you new to the channel, welcome. My name is Nick. We do Yu-Gi-Oh content mainly focused around rogue and casual decks alike. If that's the kind of Yu-Gi-Oh that you're interested in, then I highly encourage you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any more of my uploads. I tend to cover a lot of content that most other Yu-Gi tubers don't focus on, and like I said, there's bound to be something here that you're going to enjoy, and that'll pique your interest. So Yubel. Obviously, Yubel goes way back towards the GX anime, one of the most iconic villains from that anime and that era of Yu-Gi-Oh, and is beloved by a lot of the fan base. And the fact that they got brand new support is absolutely incredible, especially given how well that support synergizes with Evil Eye. An archetype that I personally really do enjoy, and I know there's a lot of huge Evil Eye fans out there as well. And these two archetypes, they go together a lot better than I think many people will think. So with that being said, we're going to dive headfirst into this brand new deck list. It's a 44 card list. And like I said, it's basically my take on Evil Eye Yubel or Yubel Evil Eye, however you want to go about it. So with that being said, we're going to jump into the monster lineup like we always do. And starting off with 3 copies of the best starter in Evil Eye, it's Surzeal, Watcher of the Evil Eye. Upon normal summon, it allows you to add an Evil Eye card from the deck to your hand except itself. In addition to that, if this card is equipped with Evil Eye of Selene, it has a quick effect where you are able to target a special summon monster the opponent controls and destroy it. So before we dive any further, Evil Eye, let me give you a quick summary. It basically revolves around an equipped spell called Evil Eye of Selene. Basically that spell, it's like a mask and it corrupts the user. Gives them ultimate power, but it also ends up hurting you in the long run, which I think is very cool. Now, Selene, when it's equipped with Surzeal, like I said, grants Surzeal the ability to quick effect destroy a special summon monster the opponent controls, which is very cool. However, there is a price to pay for that. On the next standby phase, after that effect is used, you have to destroy a card you control. That is not optional. The beautiful thing about this is that because a lot of the Yubel stuff, like the OG Yubel, including the new support, generally wants to be destroyed and generates advantage when destroyed, you have a very easy way to go ahead and access your Yubel package by using that punishment-like effect, an effect that's supposed to be detrimental to you. If you use it to destroy the Yubel monsters, you end up plussing tenfold. So I think that's obviously a very cool interaction. So obviously you max out on Surzeal just being the deck's main starter and your normal summon of choice. Obviously a very strong card, so definitely want to be maxing out on that. Moving on, we do play 2 copies of Basilius, Familiar the Evil Eye. Now this card's a great extender. As long as you control an Evil Eye monster, you can special this card from your hand. That's on a non-activated effect, which I think is great. So it just, tutors itself out as long as you control an Evil Eye monster. In addition to that, during your main phase, you can send an Evil Eye spell trap from your deck to the graveyard. So it's pretty much a Foolish Burial Goods, which is obviously very nice as well. It pairs quite nicely with Surzeal, because like I said, this card, if you don't have Surzeal to start your engines, you have Basilius to kind of also jumpstart the deck's gimmick, and being able to Foolish a spell trap can definitely start off a lot of cool plays for you. So we run Basilius at 2 copies in this particular list, followed by Basiltris, which I like the OCG name. It was Basilatris. I thought it sounded a lot better than Basiltris, but we play 2 copies of Basiltris, Familiar the Evil Eye, another level 3 fiend that if you control an Evil Eye monster and this card's in your hand or graveyard, you can special summon it but banish it when it leaves the field. So the fact that it can special from hand or grave if you control an Evil Eye monster is very cool. In addition to that, during your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you can immediately after this effect resolves, link summon an Evil Eye link monster using monsters you control's material. And when you do, you can also use Evil Eye equip spells you control as Evil Eye monsters. So this is effectively an in-archetype IP Masquerena for Evil Eye. But aside from allowing you to use monsters as link material, you can also use the equips you control to actually perform the link summon, which is really crazy. Very powerful card, especially given that it's an extender from hand or grave. So we run 2 copies of this card, very strong in the deck. And then we round that out with 1 copy of Catoblepus, Familiar the Evil Eye, another level 3 fiend. We can target an Evil Eye spell trap we control, and once until the end of the next turn, that card cannot be destroyed by the opponent's card effects. So helps us insulate our cards like Gorgoneo and Selene from destruction effects. In addition to that, if we control an Evil Eye monster other than Catobleepus, while this card's in the graveyard, we can special summon it from the graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. So that means we have 3 different extenders in this deck, 2 of which can come out of the hand, and the other 2, since Basiltriss can come from hand or grave, you have 2 that can also come out of the graveyard specifically. So the deck is chock full of extenders, which is obviously very, very strong. Definitely helps with your board building process. And like I said, they're just overall great cards. So now moving into the Yubel stuff, we play 1 copy of the OG Yubel, followed by 1 copy of Yubel Terror Incarnate. Now, we also play the 1 Yubel Ultimate Nightmare. However, I've been doing a lot of testing with this deck, and I don't think Ultimate Nightmare actually needs to be ran. To be honest with you, I want to run a second copy of the original Yubel. I do have one coming, but it just hasn't arrived in the mail yet, and I didn't want to wait to post this profile any longer than I needed to, so I just went ahead and I'm running the Ultimate Nightmare as kind of a placeholder, but I really do feel like you could cut this card or sub it for a second Yubel, because I think having another original Yubel just makes the deck that much more consistent and more powerful in my opinion. So I do apologize for having to proxy this, but like I said, I really feel like you can either just go without running Ultimate Nightmare altogether, but personally for my list, I prefer to run a second Yubel, and this card would definitely get cut for it once I receive it in the mail. So just food for thought. But Yubel effectively was Makonko before Makonkos were a thing. It could not be destroyed by battle, and I took no battles from attacks involving it, and if the opponent attacked it, they would take the battle damage instead, which is obviously really, really cracked. In addition to that, Yubel had a maintenance cost to keep itself on the field, where during your end phase you have to tribute 1 other monster or destroy this card. Which isn't really a problem now with the new support, but it was way back in the day when you didn't have a lot of ways to kind of maintain this card's cost. In addition to that, when this card is destroyed, except by its own effect, I get to special summon a Yubel Terror Incarnate from the hand, deck, or the graveyard. So it floats into a crazier form, and this one states that it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned by Yubel and cannot be special summoned by other ways. Also, like Yubel, it cannot be destroyed by battle, and I take no battle damage from battles involving it. And then before damage calculation, when this face-up attack position card is attacked by an opponent's monster, I inflict damage to the opponent equal to that monster's attack. Now, the OG Yubel does the same thing. I think I stated that the opponent takes the battle damage. There is no battle damage to take. It's just that the opponent, I inflict damage to them equal to the attack of their monster. So, they still take the damage, but the way it's done is a bit differently from how I stated. So, obviously, I think you should be running 2 Yubels and 1 Terror Incarnate. I don't think Ultimate Nightmare is required. Like I said, as soon as I get my second Yubel in the mail, this will definitely get cut for it. So that's the package of all the Yubels that we run. Very iconic monster. But like I said, there is a brand new form, or several new forms, I should say. We have 3 copies of Spirit of Yubel, a brand new monster out of Phantom Nightmare. And it states that, just like Yubel, cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, we take no damage from battles involving this card. If this card is destroyed, we can special summon one of our Yubel that is banished or in our hand, deck, or graveyard. So basically, it floats into the original Yubel from basically anywhere, which is absolutely insane. In addition to that, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, we can special summon the Spirit of Yubel from our hand, which kind of like forces us to play mind games with our opponent, because now the opponent has to figure out if they want to attack into us and risk us having this card in hand and then just having it punish them entirely, which is crazy. And then if that wasn't crazy enough, if this card is special summoned, we can add to our hand or set a spell trap that from the deck that mentions Yubel. So this card is obviously mandatory 3 of in the deck, really, really strong. Not only does it help you search the brand new spells and traps that are related to the theme, but can special itself from hand when the opponent declares an attack. And then also, just like Yubel, we take no damage from battles involving it, and also it can't be killed by battle. And then if it's destroyed, it floats into the original Yubel from anywhere, which is just huge. So 3 copies of Spirit of Yubel, very amazing monster. Then we follow that up with 2 copies of Samsara D Lotus. The D in its name actually stands for demon, which I think is pretty cool. It's a level 1 fiend monster, and it states that you contribute this card, special summon a Yubel monster from your deck. So pretty much like E-Tellies into a Yubel by tributing itself for cost, almost like a Rescue Rabbit-like card. In addition to that, during your opponent's turn, when a monster effect is activated while we control a Yubel monster, quick effect, you can tribute this card and the activated effect becomes destroy one Yubel monster on the field. So kind of serves as almost like an effect negation, but instead of negating their effect, we just change what it does, forcing them to pop one of our Yubels, which is really cool. And then in addition to that, during the end phase, if we control a Yubel and this card is in the graveyard, we can either add it to our hand or special summon it. So very cool card to be running as a 2 of in the deck. If we don't use Cerzio to start our plays, Samsara Dialotus is the next best starter for the theme. Then we round that up with 1 copy of Geist Grinder Golem, another brand new card for the Yubel theme. Effectively, we can only special summon Geist Grinder Golems once per turn, but we can reveal a Yubel monster in the hand, special summon this card from our hand to the opponent's field, then we can special summon the monster revealed from our hand to our side of the field. And then once per turn, during damage calculation, if this card battles a Yubel monster, your opponent gains 3,000 life points. But your opponent would be us, since we're giving the Geist Grinder to the opponent. So we're the ones that gain the 3,000 life points. And then in addition to that, if we special summon a Yubel monster while this card is in the graveyard, we can special summon this card to the opponent's field. So very cool card as a 1 of, in my opinion. Very amazing support overall to have in the game for monsters such as Yubel that's so iconic. And then to round out the monster lineup, we just play 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being. I think that because of all the damage reflection that Yubel likes to do, giving your opponent the fattest Nib token possible is just amazing, so we can go ahead and crash right into it, or force our opponent to attack us using said token. So I think Nib, just having that indirect synergy like that, makes it very good to be ran in this deck. That rounds out the monsters. Now we're going to be jumping to the spells, of which we play 3 copies of Evil Eye Domain Pareidolia, the Evil Eye field spell. Upon activation, it adds an Evil Eye monster from the deck to your hand, and then it also, if it's destroyed by a card effect, we can target an Evil Eye monster in grave and add it to our hand as well. So not only giving us a starter setup, but also recursion as well. It does have a battle phase like effect, but during damage calculation, if we have an Evil Eye that's equipped with Selene, but in all seriousness, that effect seldom comes up, so I'm not even going to mention it here. Just know that Pareidolia is great to help jumpstart our plays. Then we follow that up with 3 copies of Evil Eye Unleashed, which is basically a custom card for this deck. It sends an Evil Eye spell trap and a monster from your deck to the graveyard for cost. Then if it resolves, it lets you add an Evil Eye equip from the deck to your hand. So even if this gets ashed, the fact that you get to Foolish Burial and Foolish Burial Goods something for cost out of the deck is just crazy. Then if we link summon an Evil Eye Link while this card's in grave, we can banish it, targeting an Evil Eye equip in our graveyard and equip it to that newly summoned Evil Eye Link. So very great card to have at 3, effectively a really good starter for the deck. Then we do play 2 copies of Evil Eye of Selene, which is their equip spell that the entire archetype, revolves around. You can equip it only to an Evil Eye monster, and then it cannot be destroyed by battle or the opponent's card effects. Also, the opponent cannot target it with card effects, just turning our Evil Eye monsters into towers, basically. Then, each time we activate the equip monster's effects, or if another Evil Eye spell trap is activated, we lose 500 life points, and then the equip monster gains 500 attack. And that attack buff is permanent, even if the Selene leaves the field. In addition to that, if this card's in our graveyard, we can pay 1,000 life points, banish an Evil Eye spell trap from grave, except Selene, and then reset this card from the grave back to our field. So the equip spell can actually just recycle itself, which is huge. And then to follow that up, we also play 2 copies of Evil Eye Gorgonale, the other equip spell in the theme. Its name becomes Selene while on the field. And then while our life points are lower than our opponents, the equip monster gains attack equal to the difference, which is really cool. And then again, just like Selene, Gorgonale has a graveyard effect, which is really strong, by the way. This is one of the cards we're going to be sending off of Unleashed for cost. It says you can banish this card from your graveyard and discard an Evil Eye card to then add an Evil Eye spell trap from your deck to your hand, except a copy of itself. So really cool equip spells for the Evil Eye theme. Like I said, overall, I think the cards are very, very powerful and have a lot of cool synergies with the Yubel strategy. But now, moving into the newer stuff, we have 3 copies of Nightmare Pain. Yubel's attack from the anime, now made into a spell card, which I think is super cool. A continuous spell states during your main phase, you can destroy a dark monster in your hand or face-up field, and if you do, add a Yubel or 1 card that mentions it from the deck to your hand, except Nightmare Pain. So you get to destroy a dark and then search, kind of similar to like Fire King Island in a way. So very cool there. Then in addition to that, while we control a Yubel monster, your opponent's monsters that can attack must attack Yubel. Or Yubel monsters, which is really crazy. So that means like as long as they have monsters in attack and there's no restrictions stating that they can't attack, this card forces the opponent to enter their battle phase and they have to attack into my Yubels, which is just crazy, especially since the Yubels have the, you know, damage reflection gimmick, sort of, where like at the, you know, during damage step, they can inflict damage to the opponent equal to the attack of the card they're battling, which is cool. And then if that wasn't crazy enough, it states that also your opponent takes any battle damage I would have taken from battles involving my Yubel monsters. Now that effect seems odd, but what that means is now we don't have to rely on our opponent to attack into our Yubels to deal damage. We can be more proactive and just use our Yubels and attack the opponent's stuff, forcing them to take the damage basically, which is crazy. Also, because this forces us to take battle damage that we would have taken, and Yubel inflicts damage to the opponent equal to their attack, they effectively take double the damage when they attack into our Yubel, which is just insane. Like I said, you can look that up as far as rulings go, but that's pretty much how it plays out, as crazy as that sounds. So obviously you want to max out on a playset of Nightmare Pains. Then we round that out with one Mature Chronicle, another brand new spell for the theme. Just each time a monster is special summoned that is a Yubel or mentions Yubel, we place a Chronicle counter on this card, and then we can remove Chronicle counters from the field to activate one of the followings. If we remove one, we can special Yubel from grave. If we remove two, we can add one of the banished cards to our hand. If we remove three, we can banish a card from deck. If we remove four, you get to destroy a card on field non-target. And if we remove five, we get to search or add a super polymerization from the deck to our hand, effectively making this card one of the very few super poly searchers in the game. So very, very cool there. Obviously, you just play this card as a one of. And then speaking of, we also play 3 super polys for this deck. Now you're probably wondering why that is, and that's because Yubel has a brand new fusion form, which we'll go over when we get to the extra deck, but maxing out on super polys just for maximum efficiency. And then we also round out the spells with 1 copy of 1-for-1 to help get to our Samsara D Lotus, followed by the one called by the grave. So that rounds out the spells. Now moving on to the traps. Again, this is a 44 card deck list. We do play the 1 Evil Eye Retribution, which is pretty much an Infernity barrier for the Evil Eye archetype. We also play one of the new Eternal Favorite, which is another new Yubel support card. Continuous trap that states we can either special a Yubel that is banished or in our graveyard, and then neither player can activate cards or effects when that monster is summoned. Or if we control the original Yubel, we can discard a card and then send this face-up card to the graveyard to then fusion summon a fusion monster from our extra deck using monsters from either field as material, including a Yubel monster. So very cool card as a one of, in my opinion, effectively functioning as the 4th copy of Super Poly or as a Monster Reborn. And then to round out the last 3 slots in the deck is just a playset of Infinite Impermanence to help round out our hand trap lineup in tandem with the Nibiru's that we already mainboard. So that rounds out the 44 card Evil Eye Yubel deck list. Now we're going to jump into the extra deck, of which we played 2 copies of the brand new Yubel, the Loving Defender Forever. This is the cover card of the Phantom Nightmare set. So amazing. Again, keep in mind that this deck has the ability to search Super Poly, and this card is probably the best Super Poly target I've ever seen, as long as you're playing Yubel, because it just requires a Yubel monster plus 1+ effect monsters on the field. That means as long as I have a Yubel monster, I can Super Poly my opponent for everything they control as long as they're effect monsters to make this card. Absolutely incredible. It states, if this card is fusion summoned, we can inflict 500 damage to our opponent for each material used. This card cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects. Also, we take no battle damage from battles involving this card. Then at the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, inflict damage to the opponent equal to that monster's attack, and if we do, banish that monster. So this is pretty much the ultimate super duper final form of Yubel, and this is part of the reason why I feel like the deck no longer needs to run the Ultimate Nightmare version of Yubel. And like I said, I'm running this card in this list, but I would prefer this to be just a second OG copy of Yubel, which I will definitely be swapping it for once I get it in the mail. But I don't think this card is useful anymore, partly because this card just outshines it now. And since we have so much access to our Super Polys now, including a card in the main deck that functions as it, I feel like we no longer need to run the Ultimate Nightmare because the Loving Defender Forever pretty much just takes its place. So an amazing card for the deck. It's so perfect, honestly. Moving on, because again, we mainboard Super Poly, we just play one copy of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon as our other Super Poly target. Keep in mind, we don't need to play cards like Garua or Mud Dragon. I mean, can we? Yes, but remember, this confuse using any effect monster the opponent has. So like, there's almost no need to run those other Super Poly targets. So we just play the Starving Venom as the other one, just on the off chance that we don't have access to a Yubel or something along those lines. I mean, there's tons of decks going into, you know, SP Little Knights, which does happen to be a dark. So as long as we can put a dark on our field at minimum, we can always Super Poly into this, which is obviously very crazy. Then moving on, we do play one Azura King because we do have a lot of level 3 extenders, and this card is just a really powerful rank 3 monster. Follow that up by one copy of DDD Stone King Darius, again because we do play level 3 Fiends, but the Stone King Darius is just a stepping stone for our DDD Divisor King Deuce Machinex, which we can actually now hard make in this deck because it just requires 2 level 10 Fiends to hard make it, which obviously Yubel is. So very cool there. Then moving on, we do play some other rank 10s like Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. Obviously, you can overlay 2 Yubels into this and then just detach to burn your opponent for lethal potentially. And then we also play the Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut to overlay on top of Gustav Max if we're really trying to close out a game fast. Then we do play 2 copies of Gorgon, Empress of the Evil-Eyed Link 2. While she's equipped with Selene, we can target an effect monster the opponent controls and negate its effects to the end of the turn. Then during the next standby phase, after that effect was used, we can destroy a monster this card points to. Again, feeding into the fact that a lot of the Yubel support encourages itself to be destroyed, which is obviously very good. Then we do play one Muckraker, followed by one Dark the Dark Charmer. These cards are pretty self-explanatory, just having a generic Reborn for Fiends, and then Dark just being probably one of the best Charmers the game has seen. Then we round that out with one Zerziel, Ruler of the Evil-Eyed Link 3. Very powerful link as long as it's equipped with Selene. As a quick effect, we can target a card in the field and destroy it. And then during the next standby phase, after that effect was used, we can negate the effect of one effect monster that this card points to. Again, keeping in mind that while Selene is equipped with these cards, each time we use the equipped monster's effects, they gain 500 attack and we lose 500 life. So very, very cool. And then we round out the remaining extra deck with one Unchained Abomination, followed by one White Woman Jump Scare. So that rounds out the extra deck for this list. Now we're going to jump into the side deck briefly. Again, side deck's up to personal preference. Run what you want. But this side deck, I think, is going to be pretty good for this upcoming format. We do have a playset of Radian, the multi-dimensional kaiju, followed by 3 copies of Gravekeeper's Inscription, a really cool tech choice, I think, that a lot of people are sleeping on. This format's going to have a lot of graveyard-centric strategies, and I think we can just hose the living crap out of them by running cards like this that are just total blowouts and locking the opponent from using not only their graveyard effects, but also potentially preventing them from special summoning from grave. Then we also play 3 copies of Evil Eye Confrontation for our back row matchups. The fact that we have searchable MST/Cosmic Cyclones in the deck is very powerful. Then we also played 2 copies of Dark World Puppetry. Really cool tech card as well for those graveyard-centric decks where you want to just banish as many things out of their grave as possible. At the same time, while also using this card's grave effect to recover banished fiends of our own. Very strong there. Then, I've noticed an uptick in play of this card, so I'm testing it out on the side as well. I think it's very great if you're going first. Obviously, just being able to establish Solemn Strikes and preventing your opponent from getting to their end goal is great. And then for the last card on the side is 1 copy of Evil Eye Defeat. Again, if we're going first, this just gives us access to targeted bounce removal, which is good, something that the deck doesn't have already access to in the main deck. And that rounds out the profile for my Yubel Evil Eye deck list. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. Again, this is post-Phantom Nightmare format, February 2024. If you're watching the video and you're not subscribed, subscribe. We're working our way to 1,500 subs. I need your help to get there. I do want to apologize for me not uploading a video in quite a while. I've taken the past weeks to kind of really work on content for the channel and create deck profiles. I have a ton of stuff coming in the works now that Phantom Nightmare has officially released. Sneak peek was this past weekend, so expect updates to not only my Fire King deck profile, but also the much awaited and beloved Mutant Goatee deck as well, plus a bunch of other stuff that I'm going to be bringing to you guys, so you don't want to miss out on that. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the video, and comment down below on what you think of Evil Eye Yubel. With that being said, this is Nick, hitting that end phase. Peace.